الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected brothers and my dear young friends, Alhamdulillah, through the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have managed to complete Surah Yusuf, and now inshallah we will continue with Surah Yasin. Surah Yasin is a very important surah, a surah that many of us know, many of us recite, and one is to recite a surah and one is to recite with the understanding. When a person recites something with more understanding, with more knowledge, then it has a profound effect on his heart. As Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi mentions, that he gave an example of a person reading the Quran and the difference that he has when he understands the meaning. And our teachers and ulama also give examples. For example, a person receives a letter, but two brothers, imagine there are two brothers, and one understands the Chinese language whereas the other doesn't. And their parent sends a letter from China, and it is in the Chinese language. One brother who does not understand the Chinese language will look at the letter. He might be able to pick out some letters, but it will have no effect on him. And then he passes the same letter to his younger brother or his elder brother who understands the Chinese language. And as soon as he reads it, tears start to roll down his cheeks, because he has just understood that in the letter it mentions or it states that your mother has passed away or your father has passed away. So what's the difference that one brother ended up crying and the other did not cry? The baseline is that one understood the language and he read it with understanding, whereas the other just looked at the words. So that's why ulama say it's very important that we try to understand the Quran. To pray the Quran is also very important. But going further, a person should also try to understand the meanings, the lessons that are within. So since Surah Yasin is a surah that we pray, and alhamdulillah, a lot of brothers have the habit of reciting it daily, I thought, and with mashwara, we decided to start with Surah Yasin. So Surah Yasin was revealed in Makkah Mukarramah, and it is the 36th surah in the Quran, and according to revelation it was the 41st surah, number 41 in terms of revelation. And ulama mentioned that according to its number of revelation, it is roughly estimated that it happened in the middle portion of Rasulullah's life in Makkah Mukarramah. He stayed 13 years in Makkah Mukarramah after Nubuwwat. So within the midst of this 13 years. And within Surah Yasin there are 5 rukus, and altogether there are 83 ayats. The surah is called Surah Yasin because the opening verse starts with Yasin. And throughout the whole Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 3 very important messages. And the 3 main topics are discussed throughout and over again in the Quran are: number 1, Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal, the oneness of His being. And number 2, the Risalat, the prophethood, that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is Allah's true messenger. And Risalat is something which is true and it has happened before as well. And the 3rd topic that is mentioned throughout the whole Quran is Akhirat, the hereafter. That one day every person will die, and after dying it's not the end of everything. In fact, that is the beginning of something. It is the beginning of the reality when a person will see and he will be taken account of, and he will be repaid either in terms of Jannat, or if he has done evil, then he will be sent to Jahannam. So these are the three main topics that are discussed throughout the whole Quran. Over and over again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in different ways, through different wordings, through different ayats, in different surahs, He mentions these three to instill and to put in a person's heart these three main topics. And Surah Yasin also has all three of these topics within the surah. And along with this name, Hazrat Qadi Thanaullah Panipati Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions that Surah Yasin has some other names as well. It is a very special surah, and one of the names that he has been given is Mu'imma. Mu'imma means something which is comprehensive, universal. So what does it mean? So ulama mentioned that whosoever makes a habit of reciting Surah Yasin, then inshallah through the barakat of Surah Yasin he will gain the benefits in this world and the hereafter, meaning comprehensive benefit, bounties. He will get the benefits and bounties in this world as well, and inshallah in the hereafter also he will be granted benefits and bounties. That's why it's called Mu'imma. And some say that another name for Surah Yasin is Mudafi'ah. Mudafa yudafi mudafa'atan. Mudafi'ah means something that defends you, something that protects you. So Sahaba asked Rasulullah that why is this surah called Mudafi'ah for? Because Mudafi'ah means to defend. So Rasulullah replied, because whosoever recites this surah, then through the barakat of this Surah Yasin, any calamity which is coming his way, any problems, anything evil that's coming through his way, inshallah this Surah Yasin will stand before him and it will defend him and it will protect him. That's why it is called Mudafi'ah. And another name for it is Qadiyah. Qadiyah, Qada, Yaqdi, Qadiyah means to fulfill something. So again Sahaba asked Rasulullah that why is it called Qadiyah for? So Rasulullah replied that through the barakat of Surah Yasin, a person, his necessities will be fulfilled. So his surah has got, in all he's got a few names. It's called Azim as well, Mu'imma, Mudafi'ah, Qadiyah and Surah Yasin. But besides these names, the surah in itself is very virtuous. And there are many blessings attached to it. And from the statements of the Sahabas and the pious people, we can find that Surah Yasin has a very high status. Hazrat Ma'qil ibn Yasar radiallahu anhu mentions that Rasulullah said, Yasin qalbul Quran. That Surah Yasin is the heart of the Quran. It is the heart of the Quran. Meaning if the Quran had a heart, then what would be the heart? Surah Yasin would have been the heart. Or what does the heart serve in the body? What kind of organ is it? It is one of the main organs. So Mufti Sayyid Palampuri Rahmatullah mentions that it is called heart of the Quran, pointing towards the main organ of the body. That the Quran, just like the heart in a human's body is the main organ, your whole life depends on it. In the same way, Surah Yasin, within it has some very important aspects, very important lessons, very important characteristics are found inside it. Tawakkul, Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal, Risalat, Akhir, etc. So it is as though it's just like the heart is very important, in the same way the Surah Yasin is very important. And secondly, Imam Ghazali, Mufti Sayyid Palampuri mentions that because life is dependent on the heart, your whole life depends on your heart. If your heart is working, if your heart is functioning properly, then inshallah the rest of your body will also function. The rest of the body will fulfill its responsibilities. But if the heart becomes ill, then the whole body becomes ill. In the same way, he mentions that Surah Yasin, similarly, is like the heart. Because whoever recites it with concentration and ponders within it, then it contains lessons throughout the whole life, and it has topics which have been covered in terms of hereafter, Jahannam, Jannah, reckoning, etc. That will create in a person the sense of the fikr of Akhirat. And when a person gets a fikr of Akhirat, then inshallah this will make his a'mal salih good. That's why Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions that Surah Yasin may be called heart of the Quran, because this surah has touched on very important topics, especially resurrection. And just like in the Isha Salah is mentioned about what will happen to the Hadi Jahannam allati kuntum tu'adun. This is Jahannam. And the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about what will happen to the disbelievers, that وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ, the disbelievers will be separated openly, they'll be clearly put aside. The believers will be in happiness, in enjoyment. هُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُهُمْ فِي ظِلَالٍ عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ مُتَّكِئُونَ. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained akhirat, resurrection, Jannat, the bounties of Jannat, Jahannam, the blazing fire, how they will enter Jahannam. Imam Ghazali mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in such an intricate and such an intense manner that whoever reads Surah Yasin with pondering and with understanding, then inshallah in his heart it will create a zeal and a fikr of akhirat. And when fikr of akhirat comes into a person, then one of the biggest benefits of fikr of akhirat is that the next thing he will ponder is on my a'mal. That if akhirat there's only two avenues, Jannat or Jahannam, then I need to make sure that in dunya I get my amals correct. So automatically the fikr of akhirat will lead to his correctness in amal. He will start to do amal first. If he's not doing namaz, if he's not doing zikr, if he's not reciting the Quran, then fikr of akhirat will make him recite the Quran. Fikr of akhirat will make him pray namaz. And then fikr of akhirat will not just make him pray namaz, inshallah it will bring in him the next step, the fikr of making sure that the namaz is correct. Has he got ikhlas in it or not? Is it got riya inside it? Am I doing my postures correctly? Am I doing my tilawat correctly? Am I doing my qiyar correctly? So Imam Ghazali mentions that number one, the fikr of akhirat will create correctness in a'mal, and number two, it will refrain and it will protect him from impermissible acts and all those impermissible desires. So just like the well-being of the body depends on a heart and depends on the condition of the heart, similarly the strength of iman, the strength of our iman depends on the concern of the hereafter. And Surah Yasin, if a person prays with concentration, if he ponders in Surah Yasin, then Surah Yasin has within it the effect that it will create concern of the hereafter. So automatically, when a concern of the hereafter comes in a person's heart, then automatically his amal start to become correct. When his amal start to become correct, then inshallah for him akhirat is Jannat is for him. So that's why Imam Ghazali mentions that's why Surah Yasin is called Qalbul Quran. That just like the heart, if the heart is correct, then automatically the body will function correctly. If a person's heart is correct, he'll be able to walk, he won't be out of breath, he'll be able to wake up, he'll be fit, healthy, everything. Similarly with our internal heart, the spiritual heart, if it is correct, then automatically good amal will start to come out, good characteristics will start to mirror onto your body, will start to reflect onto your body. And if the heart is corrupt, that's what also said in the hadith, that inna fil jasadi mudghah, that in your body there is a piece of flesh. إِذَا صَلُوَتْ صَلُوَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If that piece of flesh is correct, if that piece of flesh is right, then automatically all goodness will start to come out. But if that piece of flesh becomes corrupt, then nothing but corruption will come out from that heart. And when we read the tafsir kitabs, we come across so many fazail. Allah ibn Kathir mentioned that some ulama have stated that one of the specialities and exclusivity of this Surah Yasin is that لا تقرأ على أمر عسير إلا يسر الله تعالى. That Surah Yasin, whoever recites it, whoever falls into a problem, or is in need of something, or he is stuck in something, he needs to come out of something, he has fallen into a calamity, a court case, Jobio. The person before going out to fulfill that necessity, or before going out to solve that problem, or before going to a court case, Jobio, whoever recites Surah Yasin, before putting any effort, abhi to kaam bhi nahi shura, but before he starts things, let me pray my Surah Yasin. Then inshallah the barakat of Surah Yasin is La taqru ala amrin asir, koi bhi dushwar kam, any difficult act, any difficult situation that you are in, whoever recites Surah Yasin, inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that action, that situation easy for the person. Allah ibn Kathir goes on to mention that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal mentions on the authority of Ma'qib ibn Yasar, that he mentioned that Yasin qalbul Quran la yaqra'uha rajulun yuridu Allah wa dar al-akhirah illa ghafra lah. That whoever recites Surah Yasin, and the only purpose of reciting Surah Yasin was to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to gain something in the hereafter, to make some reservation in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive his sins. And he goes on to mention that Bazzar, Ibn Kathir mentions that Bazzar rahmatullahi alayhi used to say that on the authority of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah once mentioned that لَوَدِدْتُ أَنَّ فِي قَلْبِ كُلِّ إِنسَانٍ مِنْ أُمَّةِ يَاسِينَ. That my wishes, Rasulullah said, whose wish? Rasulullah wish. That my wish is that in every person's heart lies Surah Yasin. From my ummah, every person should do mahfuz of Surah Yasin, hifz of Surah Yasin. And one is you do hifz. Okay, if I do hifz of Surah Yasin, then inshallah, if I recite it, this will happen, that will happen. But one is you recite, you memorize Surah Yasin because it was the wish of Rasulullah. And who was Rasulullah? He was a Nabi Sallallahu. He was our Nabi. He is our Nabi. And he has done so much for us. He has sacrificed so much for us. And not just in this world, even on the day of Mahshar. He will be the one that will say, Ummati, Ummati. He will be the one that we'll have to turn to. He will be the one that will grant us water from Hawz al-Kawthar. And what does he have? He has a wish that every believer, every person from my ummah memorizes Surah Yasin. So this wish of Rasulullah should be enough for us. Okay, no, but forget, sometimes for our parents, they have a wish, I want to go Umrah, I want to go Masjid Aqsa. And so many times it happens that parents, we don't have money and our parents want to go for Hajj. And a person saves up 10,000 pounds, 15,000 pounds. Why? No, before my father, before my parents, before my mother leaves this world, they have this wish, I want to fulfill it. My dear respected, but this is not our parents. Rasulullah was more merciful than our parents. He has a bigger favor on us than our parents, than anybody on this face of this earth. So if it was his wish, we should aspire and we should have hopes and we should try effort, put 100% effort, that we should try to learn Surah Yasin. And alhamdulillah, most of you will know it. But those who are, it is very easy. Make a little bit of tartib, daily learning 5 ayats in the morning after Fajr. Inshallah, you'll see within a week or two, you'll learn Surah Yasin. Once you've learned Surah Yasin, and if your purpose was for the wish of Rasulullah, imagine how happy Rasulullah will be, and imagine how much reward you will get. And just to finish off, Allama Qurtubi rahmatullahi mentions that Yahya ibn Abi Kathir rahmatullahi used to say that it has reached me, balagani anni, balagtu anni, that it has reached me, that whoever recites Surah Yasin at the night, in the evening, then he will remain with happiness, joy and ease till the morning. And whoever recites Surah Yasin in the morning, he will remain with happiness, joy and ease till the evening. And who doesn't want happiness? Who doesn't want joy? Who doesn't want ease in this world? And what does Yahya ibn Abi Kathir mentions later on? He says, I received this news. I received this fazilat from somebody who has physically experienced this. This is from a person that through his experience, he has said that I have recited Surah Yasin, and when I recite Surah Yasin, I feel happiness, joy and ease. Muhammad ibn Marwan, he mentions that Abu Ja'far said that whoever finds qasawa means hardness in the heart, that whoever finds hardness in his heart, then he should write Surah Yasin with the water from saffron. So you get saffron and you put it in the water, and then when the color becomes yellow, with that you write it on a plate. You write the whole Surah Yasin on a plate, and then you wash that plate and you drink that water. He said, inshallah, the hardness of the heart will ease. Allama Qurtubi mentions what's hardness, what's qasawa? Qasawa means hardness and dryness in the heart. So what does hardness and dryness in the heart mean? If you were to open someone's heart, you will not find this. Meaning spiritual hardness and spiritual qasawa, spiritual dryness. What does that mean? That means that this hardness results in a person finding it difficult to submit to a commands of Allah. To pray namaz becomes difficult. To recite the Quran becomes difficult. To become obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes difficult. Allah Shaykh Sa'di rahmatullahi mentions that hardness in the heart is that the person is no longer inclined towards the Quran. He has time to go on through 2 hours he can spend scrolling on YouTube, on Snapchat, on Facebook. But if you tell him, let's sit down and pray Surah Alif Lam Mim Sajda at night, for him to pick the Quran shape becomes difficult. In the morning, as soon as he wakes up, he can do 110 different tasks. If you tell him, let's pray Yasin Sharif, that is a burden. This is qasawa. This is the beginning of qasawa. That he's not inclined towards the Quran. And he does not ponder in the ayats. Bayans are taking place and the ayats of Quran are being mentioned. But there is no ponderation. And there is no understanding and there is no fear or there is no consideration. And Lama Sa'di Rahmatullahi goes to mention that his heart does not get content with zikr. When he does zikr, in fact, zikr, the benefit of zikr, Allah bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. A person finds tranquility, he finds peace in his heart. But when he does zikr, he doesn't find this. He doesn't find tranquility, he doesn't find peace in his heart. Then he says that this person, his heart has started to become hard. And when a person starts to become hard, then instead of turning to Allah, he turns to other people. And instead of getting soft, instead of getting tranquility in zikr, he gets some sort of fake pleasure and fake peace and fake tranquility through good things, through watching movies, through talking to girls, etc. So now this person is on the negative side. His heart is becoming hard. So to have a soft heart, number one, is a ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's calling us over and over again to in the masjid. We get peace when we listen to bayan. We get peace when we read the Quran. When we listen to zikr, it's a great ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are other people in this world that when they listen to bayans, when they listen to zikr, then they feel like, I need to get out of here. In fact, they sat at a house where there's janazah and somebody has died. At that time, your heart becomes soft. At that time, people go for namaz. This person will Skype. He will still not come to a masjid. He will make an excuse. Why? Because the heart has started to become hard. So that's why ulama say that how does a heart become hard? Usually because constantly carrying out sins. When a person constantly is persistent in guna, then one guna invites to another guna invites to another guna. And it's a domino effect. One guna to another guna, and person becomes so ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that there's no longer remorse, there's no longer regret, no regret, no remorse, no tawbah. So now his heart is getting filled with guna upon guna. In hadith, some said that when a person sins, nukkita fil qalb, in his heart a black dot appears, another black dot appears, another black dot appears. And this is the beginning of the hardness. So now what happens? That to do guna becomes easy, and to do good and to do virtue becomes difficult. So one reason why a person, the heart becomes hard is because of guna. And then a person starts to lose the azmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He becomes careless, he becomes carefree. He's not bothered if he misses namaz. He's not bothered if he's doing sin. He's not bothered if people see him. Number two, when a person falls in negligence, ghaflat. Ghaflat again creates qasawa. When a person's got dhikr in his heart, he's remembering Allah, then his heart stays wet. His heart stays soft. And when negligence comes into a heart, then ghaflat, wherever there's ghaflat, shaitan is there. Wherever you find ghaflat, shaitan is there. You forget the remembrance of Allah, straight away shaitan creeping. Where shaitan comes in, then the next thing he's going to make you do is guna. One guna, two guna, again, it creates ghaflat. Forgetfulness of death. When a person forgets death and forgets the hereafter, it creates qasawat in the heart. Because he thinks this world is everything. When a person, that's why Rasul said that kuntu nahitukum an ziyar al-qubur. I used to tell you not to go to Qabristan. So in the initial stage of Islam, Rasul stopped the Sahabas from going Qabristan because there was the Zamana Jahiliyat ways where they would do sajda on the qabr or ask the qabr. So Rasul to kill this out totally, to break it, to uproot it totally, he said, no go to a Qabristan. Finish. Nobody goes to a Qabristan. When Rasul realized that now the Sahabas sambal gaya and they understand the creed of Islam and what's the limits and what you should do in Qabristan. Now he said, Fazuruha. Now go to a Qabristan. فَإِنَّا تُذَكِّرُكُمْ مَوْتٍ. Because when you go to the Qabristan, it will remind you of death. And when a person, his death is lingering in front of him, then Khwaishat. That's why a person who's just been told he's got terminal cancer, now you ask him, you want to come to a cinema? You want to do his guna? He'll say, no, by chore, I don't want to do it. Why? Because death is in front of him. When a person's parda opens up and he sees death hanging before him, then guna starts to leave a person's life. Then those gunas were like super glue that was stuck to you, that you thought I can never leave, they will leave like this well. That's why the Mawshah Taimutullah mentions that a person who ponders for 2 minutes at night before he goes to sleep of fikr akhir, he ponders, he thinks, imagines he's going to die and imagines his journey to a qabristan, etc. He says in 2 weeks, Ghaliban, I think he says that in 2 weeks I guarantee that the guna will go from his life. Because when a person starts to do fikr of akhir, and naturally has an effect in the heart. When he has an effect in the heart, then guna start to fall off from your body, just like the leaves start to fall off the tree. And a person thinks, no, I can't do this guna. I've got to see Allah very soon. How can I go to my Allah in this state? And ulama say that another reason why a person's heart becomes hard is excessive love for this world. When a person has too much love for this world, want to buy this car, this house, this bungalow, this holiday, fulana, and then his mind is only just going on, circulating around the world, then he forgets his hereafter. When a person forgets his hereafter, then all he does is wants to fulfill his khwaishat, and he starts with jaiz khwaishat. But the whole thing behind khwaishat is when you fulfill one desire, the next desire, then the next desire is to be even better. And the one has to be, so a person has one desire, he fulfills it, the next time he doesn't want the same desire, he wants something even better. He has one car, then he won't want to suffice on that car, he wants to upgrade to the next car. He has one phone, he won't want to stick to the iPhone 10, he wants to upgrade to iPhone 12, then iPhone 13. So similarly desires, and then slowly these desires then take a person to najais guna, najais desires, khwaishat which are najais, and then slowly he's so engrossed in this dunya that he forgets. So ulama say that how do you remedy this now? The whole thing, a person's heart becomes hard, or he feels that my heart is becoming hard. How should you remedy it? Read the Quran with concentration. That's why we need to sit in Durus Quran so we understand that what is Allah telling us. So when a person reads the Quran with concentration, when he ponders, then inshallah the hardness in his heart will start to soften, and inshallah start to melt, the darkness will start to go, light will start to come in his heart. When light starts to come in his heart, softness comes in his heart, then inshallah to do A'mal Salih will become easy. Number 2, excessive tawbah. Excessive tawbah and istighfar and zikr. When a person does these three things, istighfar, tawbah and zikr excessively, again, any hardness in his heart will start to go. Number 3, sitting in the company of the pious. When a person sits in the company of the pious, then their ruhaniyat inshallah will have effect on him. Like a car is broken down and that car is not working, what do you have to do? You have to bring a car which is stronger, put the jump leads on, and this stronger car will automatically start this car. But if you bring a car, you're sitting in a person's company who is worse than you, or is same as you. It's like bringing a dead car. It's like going to a scrapyard or getting a car and trying to jump lead your car. Will your car work? You have to sit in the pious people's company. Their ruhaniyat will have effect on you. This will be a jump start. And inshallah, once your jump start is done, inshallah, you can start walking the path of. And number 3, 4, important point is restraining your nafs and reflecting upon one's life. Restrain your nafs. Whenever there's an urge to do guna, restrain. Think of the akhir. Pray those, do those amal that ulama have told us how to protect yourself. Mujahada. And with this, do a bit of contemplation. Sit at home at night before you go to sleep. Do some muhasabah. Calculate and take stock of yourself. Where am I today in terms of akhir? If I was to die today, will my Allah be happy with me? Will I go in Jannah, or am I in a grey area, or am I in the red area? If I was to die today, then today I've done these many sins. If Allah was to just take accountability of me today, am I going in Jannah, or is it in the, and tomorrow should be better. So inshallah, if a person does these things, inshallah his heart will soften up. When his heart softens up, inshallah to do amal will become easier. This is the purpose of our life. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So inshallah, when a person does these things, inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for him. Muhammad ibn Marwan says that a person finds hardness in his heart. If he writes Surah Yasin in saffron water and drinks it, inshallah, to some degree, his heart will soften up. And along with this, all the other things that I mentioned, if a person also carries them out, inshallah, you'll see that his heart will become soft. Fear, you got Allah with you. If Allah is on your side, the whole world, everything is yours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the correct understanding. Inshallah, from next week we'll start Surah Yasin. Today I thought I'll just mention the fazilat. When a person, the whole purpose of fazilat is when a person listens to fazail of something, it creates an urge. It creates this urge inside him, zeal inside him, encouragement. So those people, there's many other riwayats. A person prays Surah Yasin in the morning, then his hawaij, his necessity of the day are fulfilled. Happiness is there. I've told you Sunnah, alhamdulillah. So we should make a target. If I don't know Yasin Sharif, then I'm going to learn it by heart. And if I know it, then I'm going to make a point of reciting it daily. And in some riwayats, it mentions, Mufti Sayyid Palampur mentions this, I'll just finish on this, that whoever recites Surah Yasin Sharif daily, he will get the reward of 10 Qur'ans. The ajr of 10 Qur'ans. We are in need of ajr. We are in need of ajr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like last Friday. They call it the Black Friday. So those things that are so expensive on that day become so cheap. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us daily. Pray Yasin once, and you get 10 times the reward of Quran. And Ghaliban in the Quran there are 6,666 ayats. And how many letters only Allah knows. How many letters here. And in the Quran, the hadith mentioned, whoever prays one letter, he gets 10 rewards. How much reward are you getting? Somebody asked, I've heard that if you recite the Surah Yasin, you get 7 times the reward of the Quran. So the Moshe mentioned, not 7, in fact, you get 10 times the reward. And then the person asked, sometimes you think, wait a minute, you pray Surah Yasin, you get 10 times? He said, yes. If Allah wants to give, Allah is a giver. He wants to give, He can give anything. Sometimes there's a bonus. And to understand this nowadays, even easier. That somebody has an American Express card. So generally, if you spend 1 point, you get 1 point. But even they have certain days that if you spend this much, you'll get 30 times more. Or you'll get this many rewards. So if a company established by humans can give 10 times more reward, why can Allah not give it? Allah is Ghafoor Rahim, He can give as much as you want. So as the Moshe mentioned, yes, there could be a possibility that when you pray the whole Quran 10 times, the Nuraniyat, the Barakat, etc. that you get from 10 times will be different to praying Yasin Sharif once, but the base reward you will get the same. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the correct understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to recite Surah Yasin and continue with our efforts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept what's been mentioned, what's been said. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.